Hi, I'm Diana Yoakley. I'm a peaceful parenting coach and mom of three, and I'm delighted to give you the latest science backed research on child development, parenting, and to support you in showing up as the parent that you want to be. Welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast today. I'm really excited to have a special guest here today. A topic of mine that's really something I love to explore more on the podcast and bring this information to parents' hands in a very educational and practical way. So I have here with me Ashanti Branch. Welcome, Ashanti. So glad to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you're here. So Ashanti is an educator, mentor, a powerful voice in transforming how we understand masculinity, emotional health, and connection in young men. And he's the founder of Ever Forward Club, along with some other projects that I'll let him share with you. But he's dedicated his whole life to guiding youth and removing the emotional masks society places upon us and allowing for genuine vulnerability and deeper relationships. So he's here to share his insights today and wisdom to us as parents, raising emotionally intelligent kids, but particularly boys, and creating family environments at home, but also eventually societies where every member feels safe to be their authentic self, including the emotional aspects of self. So excited to have you here today. This is such an important topic, and I'd love for you to probably elaborate a little bit more on how you came to this work and some of the other you talk about the million mass movement, like if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you. I was raised by a single mother in Oakland, California. My father died before I was born. So,
Mhm.
leading up to my birth, 3 months before I was born, in those last development stages, my mom was going through a lot of grief and sadness and worry and stress and heartbreak. And so she passed down to
Mhm.
me all those chemicals in the womb of feeling really big emotions. And I grew up in a community where you're barely allowed to show any emotion if it's not funny or angry. And so because
Mhm.
I felt all types of emotion, I could feel people's energy from across the room, down the hall, across the parking lot. Like I was picking up energy all the time that I didn't even know what to do with, but I'm always trying
Yeah.
to help people. And so I think I grew up with a type of being that was not respected, always inspected, and always seemed that
Mhm.
something was wrong with me. And I think that's
Mhm.
how the growing up started. So I learned how to get really good at like shutting all those emotions down. But what ended up happening is in elementary school, I got suspended probably 23 or more times, all for fighting. And I didn't even
Mhm.
like fighting. I never started any of the fights. Like I'm a kind, nice kid.
Yeah.
But there's rules in my community about walking away from a fight or being a snitch or
Mhm.
letting people pick on you and then not doing anything about it. There was rules, and so
Yeah.
the only answer that I knew was to fight back, and that was pretty often. And once you beat up one person, then everybody thinks you tough, and then everyone wants to test you, and then you're like, I didn't want to fight that person, and now I got to fight somebody
Yeah.
else who thinks I think I'm a. So it was just like it was a constant like battle. But
Mhm.
I learned that because I was, and this was looking back, I couldn't talk about being sad. Like when I would see my friends get dropped off by their fathers, or they would be telling a story on Monday morning about what they did with their dad. I felt a lot of sadness, but you're not allowed to show that in my community. So I stuffed it. And I just turned everything into
Mhm.
anger. If I couldn't laugh
Yeah.
about it, then I'll fight about it. And I just kept just
Yeah.
navigating through these limited ways of being. So fast forward, I go to college. Uh, I mean, there's a lot of fast forward, but I'm
Yeah.
moving to middle school. Middle school was a miserable time for me. High school, I got my academic act together, even though I was still emotionally devoid of a lot of range. And so I just was one channel. Like I'm a smart kid going to college. I'm getting out of Oakland. I'm gonna go and be rich. And graduated engineering, making good money, and teaching called me. And I was like, teaching ain't even no money. There ain't no. I think I may have had one male teacher in my whole K-12 life, except for PE. But besides that, maybe one male teacher, if two, maybe two, but very few. So I was like, teachers,
Yeah.
they don't make no money, and I want to be rich. You can't be rich being no teacher, so I ran from it because I wanted the prestige of what it felt like when you go to a club and people say, "Oh, so what do you do?" Because they always ask you what you do. I'm an
Yeah.
engineer, and they're like, "Oh, you're an engineer," and that feeling of accomplishment was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna give that up to become a teacher because it changes right away. It changes. Oh, you're a teacher? Oh, how nice. And so anyway, I became a teacher and I was like seeing some young men in my class failing a lot, but they were smart. And I was like, oh, I know what they're doing. They're trying to pretend like they're not smart because in that community, smart's not cool. And so they're trying to be
Hmm.
cool because they know the rules are smart isn't cool. And so therefore I was
Yeah.
like, you can't fail my class. And so I started this program called the Ever Forward Club. We were featured in a documentary called The Mask You Live in 2015. And this is our 21st year anniversary of doing this work with young men. And 21 years ago, we were not having these conversations about boys and young men. Like
Yeah.
people thought it was strange that I was having a club for young men because they're like, the boys have everything. They have all the sports, they have all of this, they have all. I said, you're missing something because
Yes.
they don't have a vocal range of how they feel because they've been told they're not supposed to talk about how they feel. And so they're lacking the ability to communicate about what they need because they're acting like they don't need anything. And
Hmm.
that's how our work has evolved over these last 21 years. And now we have this movement about emotions and masks. The Million Mask movement was created in that documentary, The Mask You Live In. It was just an activity at the time. I was trying to get those young men to open up and they wouldn't talk. So I said, well, don't talk about it. Just write it. And that activity, which is now called the Million Mask Movement, is how we have been transforming lives. And it's not just for young
Mm.
men, that activity. It's now a global movement. We have masks
Yeah.
made from around the world. We have over 83,000 masks that we've made with people from more than 30 countries. And so,
Wow.
yeah, that's what the movement is about. It's like, well, what am I letting the world? The mask is basically a representation. It's a metaphor. I got like, if I talk about a mask, I got masks here, like this is
Yeah.
a wrestling mask. But if I wore this all the time, you wouldn't really know who I was. You would know my eyes, you may see my mouth, but that's all I'm letting you see. But once I take this off, I expose myself, and I
Yeah.
and we have to always decide how much can people handle of our real true stuff. And that's what we
Yeah.
invite people with the mask to do is recognize there's so much more to you than anybody can see by just looking at you. And that's the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Such an amazing overview. And what really resonated with me deeply was when you said, um, people are like, well, why boys? They have everything, and I totally agree. Like, they don't have permission by society to accept and live out and express all parts of them. Certain parts are accepted, other parts are not accepted. I'd love for you to just your opinion, maybe it's a personal opinion or maybe it's research based, but what is it that society, why is this a historical thing? Like, why won't we let boys express this full range? Um, and in some cultures, girls either, right? Like conventional parenting, nobody's allowed to cry. Stop crying about it, or I'll give you something to cry about, boy or girl.
Mm.
But there is this overarching masculinity, girls when they get bigger they can cry, but not boys really.
Yeah, and I think the roots are deep in there. They're maybe even cultural, and they maybe even you know city, state, country specific, right? I think when I went to India for the first time, I would see men who walk down the street holding hands with their friends, and
Mhm.
I was like, what's that? What's going on here, right? Like I'm from the Bay Area. It's not like it's a shocking scene, but it's something very different. But they're not
Yeah.
in partnership. They're just friends
Yeah.
because friends are allowed to have intimate friendships without you wondering if somebody is questioning your sexuality or that
Hmm.
kind of thing. And I think what every culture has had is to decide what are the rules here. In 1,000 years ago, if when you lived in communities or villages, like there was a rites of passage for boys. Boys go through a rites of passage, and when the boys are a certain age, they stay with the women. They don't go hang out with the men until they're ready to be with the men. And there's no
Hmm.
adolescence. So every culture has decided how they want to handle adolescence. Some cultures there is still no adolescence. There's you're a boy and then you complete some kind of rite of passage, and now you're a man. But now we have boys who are sitting around from 12 to 18 thinking that they're just young men and they have no responsibility, nothing that they're trying to. I mean, I think in a lot of our communities, okay, you get your license, that's a part of rites of passage, or you get a girlfriend, you have sex, or you learn how to drive a car. Like there are these
Yeah.
monumental things that you get
Hmm.
that show somehow growing up. But how does it test whether you have integrity? How does it test whether you keep your word? How does it test whether you're honorable? How does it test whether you tell the truth even in hard times? Some
Hmm.
of our societies have just decided that we're going to use these external factors. Oh, you got a six pack.
Yeah.
Oh, you got hair on your face. Or you got a mustache. Oh, you like all these markers of what it means to be a man in many communities are devoid of what we would say we want men to be in our community. What does it mean to be a man in your community? Oh, they have a car. Okay. Oh, they got muscles. All right. And then we lack that. The things we say we're going to value is that they're empathetic and they're kind and they take responsibility. Listen, I was doing some data the other day for a grant, and I remember looking up how many hundred of thousands of teenage girls ended up pregnant over the last several years. They didn't end up that way by themselves. And how
Right.
many how many of them are raising children by themselves because the man decided, you know what, I don't like you anymore, and now I'm gonna walk away. Now, I don't think that they learned that just one day. I think it's a patterns of like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I don't want the responsibility. I just wanted the fun. And now I get to walk away so I think there's so many things happening in different communities and societies that I don't think there's any one answer on why. I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
complex, and I think it requires a lot of conversation in a society where our young men are constantly doing this, right? So how do you get them to have a
Hmm.
conversation? I love my phone, but I tell young men, "Hey, you gotta put that down for a bit. Like right now, we're not using that right now. We're gonna talk.
Hmm.
We're gonna talk. And yes, it's gonna be awkward. And yes, I'm gonna have you look me in my eyes. And yes, I'm gonna expect you to answer with less than an acronym. I want words, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a journey of where we are right now in the world that they are growing up in. They're growing up in the digital age. I didn't. I didn't have a cell phone growing up. You know what I'm saying? I got to go out and come back before dark. I got to explore. Some kids don't get to even go down the street in the daylight. So they're constantly having a device stuck to them that they get checked on every time. So there's no free range of play and
Yeah.
exploration because sometimes it's a wild world. So I can kind of get it too. But what does it do for them, right? When they don't know how to make any decisions for themselves. They're waiting for somebody to tell them what decision they make because they've been trained that way. And it's sometimes in a lot of the trainings, we're trying to figure out, well, how do we
Hmm.
help young men be more whole and healthy, socially,
Hmm.
emotionally, mentally, physically, in all those ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I love that it's like multifactorial because that allows for change, I think. If it's one big thing, it's a lot harder to change like one single answer of why we came to where we are today versus if it was
Mm.
like an evolving thing, which mean because it means we can also continue to evolve to something different, which I think is hopeful. And for my audience, we have parents that are really intentional and motivated to parent a certain way to raise boys while these children are living in their homes in a way that is emotionally intelligent. So maybe we can go kind of straight into like what can parents do in their home to create a safe environment to role model this at home, because I know there's different like phases of intervention. Like once they're in the world, we can intervene. Once they're like the adults, how can we involve them? But in my audience, it's like they're still under the roof and parents still have a lot of influence. How can they take advantage of that and raise children that express their emotions without fear or shame?
You know what? I think it's layers, right? I mean, I think it's even in the home. It's like depending on the family structure of like what does it look like. One suggestion out there in the world is family dinner night. What is that? Well, some families like, of course we have family dinner night. We all go and get our plate and we eat. But the question: are we eating together? Are we talking? Is everyone having dinner kind of at the same table, but we're all in different worlds? Like, are we are
Hmm.
we intentionally talking about the day? How was my day? What went well? What didn't? And I know that when I talk to young men and when I talk to parents, and sometimes we get into the habit. We just get into like the habits of life, right? I see when my mom asked me how I did after school, it was always I was doing fine. That was the answer. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm cool.
No matter
Because
what happened. Yeah.
no matter what happened. Oh, I mean, my mom, the only reason my mom found out I was getting bullied in middle school is because I was coming home every day eating like 2 or 3 sandwiches because the bully was taking my lunch money. And she was like, "Why is all this bread disappearing?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Because I was lying and I was literally starving. I come home and I'm just trying to get
Yeah.
some food. And she's like, "I swear I just bought a whole loaf of bread. Why is the bread?" Because I'm coming home and I'm like, I'm hungry. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm pretending like I don't know nothing about it. And it wasn't until one day she decided to come home early. And I'm in
Yeah.
there eating 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And she's like, "What's this?" And I'm like, I was just extra hungry today." And then the thing was up, right? It was like, oh, I'm gonna dig myself deeper in this hole of lying because I don't want to
Yeah.
tell her that I'm being bullied. I mean, I feel embarrassed about it. I feel ashamed of it. I feel afraid of what she's gonna do because my mama, she got a big mouth and she gonna go up to the school and she gonna make it worse. She thinking she's making it better. She gonna make it worse. And so I'm trying to keep her out of the mix. So I'll figure it out by myself. I'll just deal with this. I'll endure this. And I think that what
Yeah.
happens is if we're not having healthy conversations, then they're trying to look out for our feelings as much as we may be thinking we're looking out for theirs. Like they're watching
Yeah.
us. Our parents, our kids are watching the parents as much as the parents are watching the kids. And the
Yeah.
kids were watching the parents when they had no words. So they know the inflection of the eyebrows, they know the scrunch of the nose. They can feel
Yeah.
it. You know what?
Yeah. They can feel their emotions just as much as we can read theirs to
Absolutely.
some extent.
Absolutely. And so I think it's just like, how do we have those healthy conversations? The mass event that we created was about starting those conversations without words. What if we could just write it? What if we could just write it and then just give room to like just take it in? Like, oh wow, there's a whole lot more going on. And sometimes parents are not telling their kids how they're struggling because they don't want to burden their kids with the problems, right? And I think that that makes sense, you know? Like, but I could always tell my mom was going through something. I could see when she got out the car, how she grabbed her bag, how she closed the
Yeah.
door, how she was
What kind of
putting the
day it was going
keys.
to be?
Oh, and I'm the oldest, so I'm air traffic control, you know? And I'm like, "Hey, get your," I'm like the movie
Everybody
Inside
line
Out,
up.
you know?
Uh-huh.
You better get out a book. Get out a book, get out a broom, get out a vacuum cleaner, get out a mop. Like everybody
Yeah.
got to be doing something right now because when she walks
Little
in here,
angels. Yeah, little angels day.
hey, we workers. We're trying to like keep the peace, you know what I'm saying? We
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
peacekeepers.
come in peace.
We come in peace. But I think that because I knew that when I if I was gonna ask her how she was doing, she'd be like, "I'm fine. Why are you asking me? Why are you asking me these questions? Like, go in there and do your work, right?" Because if I didn't learn from my mom how to solve problems.
Yeah.
I didn't. She didn't really talk about her problems. I just would overhear her conversations with the bill collectors and realize, oh, there's some problems going on.
Yeah.
My life was always trying to like figure out what's going on because she was never saying what was going on. And then she would be mad about something like totally off the wall. And I'm like, why are you so mad about that thing out of place over there? But it wasn't that. It was she was trying to navigate all the stuff she was already dealing with, and that thing got the attention. And so for us, it
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay. For me, as the oldest, helping raise my siblings, I had a responsibility too. I had a responsibility to protect my siblings and to protect the
Hmm.
peace sometimes. And I think that's part of the journey of our work is how do we have healthy conversations when we're all trying to like just do the best we can to not burden other people with our stuff. But if
Yeah.
I don't learn how to solve problems, when I get a problem, I'm gonna keep it to myself too, which is
Yes.
probably what
Yeah.
happened subconsciously when I was being bullied. I was like, well, I don't know how to. I don't think telling her my problem is gonna make it better. I think it may make it worse. So, and not that she wouldn't want to help, she would want to help probably too much. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
imagine that all the ways that we live in the world, like we're trying to, when I ask young people why you don't tell people how you really feel, most of their answers are like they don't really care, they didn't really ask, I don't want to burden them with my problems.
Yeah.
Everything's about the other person. But if we were
Right.
navigating ourselves based on what we really needed, when someone said how you're doing, which people say all the time, we would really think they meant it. But since we know the
Hmm.
question means nothing, then the answer begins to mean nothing. And it begins to
Yeah.
mean nothing in most of our connections. And so I think we start with that. Do you have the freedom to tell people how you really are doing?
Hmm.
safely.
Yeah. And as the parent, it reminds me of like, if we don't stay mindful and present, nobody's perfect, but as much as we can with kids when they're little, if we don't care about their little like thing about red cup, blue cup, and it's like, it's not a big deal. Or like this toy, something, something, that's not a big deal. That's not an adult problem to solve. Just, okay, it's fine. It's fine. You know, like if we minimize their small problems when they're little, then when they get big, they won't share their things with us because we've taught them that we just don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, okay, it's not as
Mm.
bad as my, you should hear about my adult life. I've got all these serious problems. Like, so in perspective, it's true that our challenges are bigger as parents, maybe as adults, but we're still teaching them. We're sending a message, like you said, and it's like the doors are not open. How are
Yeah.
you doing? I expect to hear that you're okay, and then we don't have any more problems here. We have enough problems.
Yeah. And imagine that. Like they get in the car. How was your day? Fine. How was your day? Fine. Okay. We keep it moving. Everyone's back to their
Right.
music, back to their podcast, back to their phone, back to their device. And we escape the conversation about some real stuff that are going to be awkward. Right. And I think what I invite people and definitely students, when I tell them in the workshop, when we do our workshops, and we say, look, I invite you to go home today and ask your parent how they're doing. And when they say whatever answer they
Oh,
say, whether good, fine, cool, all right, maybe you inquire a little bit more. Tell me more about that. If they give you a real answer, if they give you an easy answer that just moves things along, I want you to say to them, hey, I just want you to know that if you're ever not doing cool, if you're ever not doing good, if you're ever not doing okay, I'll be here to listen. And they're probably gonna be shocked that you said that to them because they're not used to the kid being the one initiating a real
yeah.
conversation. But if you try it, you will see that they may be like, what just happened here? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Because somebody has to go first. And
Right.
you as a kid may think, well, my parents are not asking me. Well, how about you now have new knowledge about what you all are doing for each other? You're protecting them from your feelings. They're protecting you with their feelings. You're doing it to each other for each other. You're not
Hmm.
doing it to deceive them. You're
Yeah.
doing it to deceive them. Maybe you don't want them to know you got some bad grades or whatever, but maybe you're just doing it because you don't want to worry them and they're doing it because they don't want to worry you. And so if you just keep operating where you don't want to worry each other, like how about you maybe not make it a worry? Maybe you make it a caring opportunity. I get to care for you a little
Yeah.
bit more. I get to know you a little bit more. I get to
Hmm.
understand you a little bit. Oh, you're grumpy some days because you come home because the the partner you are looking at school, the person you're interested in is not interested in you. You're not getting the respect you want to get on the playground. You know, have the athleticism that you wish you had, and all the ways that we just experience the world. How do we have a space to talk about it? And I think
Hmm.
when I also told parents, I said, listen, if you've ever had a kid who came home and said they lost a friend, be mindful how you respond to that because maybe you've gotten good as an adult to write off anybody who doesn't want to be your friend as not worthy of being
Yeah.
your friend then. But when you're 7, when you're 12, that's all you got. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all you got.
Yeah.
And to say you got a brother in there, to say you got to say you got family here who cares about you is to just dismiss the fact that
Yeah.
a heartbreak is heartbreak,
Yeah.
and to be like you don't need to feel that heartbreak, like
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
what is how it often happens, just subtly. It's not even like intentionally to try and
Hmm.
it's sometimes subtle, and it's those subtle ways that
Hmm.
adults have forgotten. Um, I never had anybody judging me from somewhere around the world when I was a teenager. These kids every day they got a
Right.
device where people are judging them, possibly saying mean things about them that they'll never even meet. People don't. I mean, and where I grew up, they had to come to your face, or they had to like
Right.
pass it to one of their friends, but they're not passing it 3 countries or away. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like
Hmm.
now, kids are trying to navigate emotions about stuff that people are saying about them that are from some. Maybe it's a human, and maybe it's not. But
Hmm.
I've known a couple of times people I've gone on online. I'm like, who is this saying this? And you go in there, it has like 2 followers. It's like
Some bot.
some bot, and you're just like, I was about to get sucked in to some ridiculousness, right? How quickly it
Yeah.
happens as an adult, even. So imagine teenagers who
Hmm.
have less um, range, or also maybe just have less frontal lobes kicked in about decision making. So they're responding back, and they're now trying to navigate the world in a different way. So anyway, I think there's just
Yeah.
so many layers to it. That's how we just start with the conversation. We start with the mask. Hey, what am I
Yeah.
not seeing? What am I missing? What am I missing? What am I not seeing? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I love how we're talking about like the verbal communication. I'd love to touch on like writing. We talked about like writing, which is a great way to if you don't want to say it, can you write it? Can you like narrate it somehow without telling me face to face to start? But I also would love to touch on like if kids have right now, let's say a kid has a hard time opening up to their parent about what's going on. The parents like feels like they're trying to like pull stuff out of them, but nothing's coming out. um how can we like as parents then use their behavior as communication? If we're not getting verbal communication, eventually there's going to be some behavior that will show us what they're actually going through, and it will be a form of communication. I don't know if you want to touch on that. Especially if there's parent-child conflict, like they're lying to me, they're hiding screens, whatever it is, or
Mhm.
like, they're getting in trouble at school, but they don't want to tell me what's going on. The
Yeah.
teachers are saying one thing, whatever it is, but they don't want to talk about it. But how can they use that like quote unquote misbehavior as a clue to what is being communicated and use that as a doorway? Because when a kid's like losing it, they're having like, meltdown or whatever, like they're throwing angry words at you, they're saying something rude, they throw something rude
Mm,
at you. That's like baseball to me. It's like, oh, something's going on. Why would
mm,
a kid say something rude? Why would a good kid do this? Like,
mm.
what are they trying to tell me? So, yeah, is that like a good starting place if verbal communication isn't there preventatively about how the day is going?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I imagine so, sometimes parents are learning new things and then they come to the kid and they're like, I'm gonna test you out, I'm gonna test this thing out on you, right? The kid's like, why are you asking me these questions? Like,
Yeah,
we've never had conversations. Like, what's going on here? Why is this? And I think sometimes
yeah,
parents need to like preempt them to say, hey, tomorrow after you get home from school, we're gonna have a conversation. It's gonna be a new kind of conversation. Like it's like sometimes parents are learning stuff in these kind of conversations. They're like, oh,
yeah,
okay, I'm gonna try it right now, and they haven't even
yeah,
warmed
yeah.
themselves up to like, okay, what's about to happen, right? Like the kid is like used to the way we normally do
The
things.
mask. The kid is used to your mask and they put on their mask and that's
That's
it.
right.
What is
And so
this
then when you try,
vulnerability?
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So then you just be able to say, okay, so we're gonna try something new tomorrow after school. Just gonna
Yeah.
prepare you. It's nothing, it's just gonna be a communication. We're gonna play a game. We're gonna do an activity. But I think it's like helps set the tone that okay, we're gonna try something different. I'm not saying it's always easy. I'm saying even tomorrow may not be when the kid wants to do it, but to let them know, I'm learning too about how to be a better
Mhm.
communicator with you, and I'm trying to get better at this. And so, you know, sometimes I'm gonna mess it up, and sometimes I'm you're not gonna understand it. But know that I'm trying to make sure that our communication becomes
Mhm.
rich and connected. And look,
Mhm.
I didn't growing up as a teen, me and my mom didn't get along a lot, but I'm so thankful for her.
Yeah.
I've matured enough and I've seen enough life to know that she did her best.
Right.
While it was happening, I'm like, she's a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
often. Like do
Yeah.
you just wake up in the morning trying to be a pain in the neck? Like why do you
Yeah.
why is every time we have a conversation something that you don't like, you know? And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
gosh, right? And I'm trying to be a good kid. I was not a kid who was getting in trouble except those fights in elementary school, but by the time I got to high
Yeah.
school, I was on track. My mom was always super worried. She was always super checking my pockets. She was because she saw craziness out in the
Yeah.
world, and I was the recipient of her worry and stress. And so
Mm.
I was like, what's going on with you? Like, why are you thinking these things, right? And I think it was she
Yeah.
was never explaining them in any good reason. So it was just like somehow I was like, why does she think I'm a bad kid? Like I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to get to college so I can get out of Oakland. That was my mission.
Yeah.
I wasn't,
Mhm.
and so, but I had plenty of friends who were doing stuff. So maybe she was looking at what my friends were doing, or heard a story about some of them, and then was like, okay, my son is spending a lot of time with these people, maybe something like that. So I think it was just like all those journeys of just trying to figure it out. But I
Mhm.
think it's communication. It's oh, okay. And some things like she may not have been able to explain because she didn't have the words to explain them herself, right? But she did. I think she did the best. My mom was 22 years old when she had me, so she was young,
Mm-hmm.
right? She was
Yeah.
young, and I was, and we're really close. I'm the oldest, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
those things, like I felt more hurt by them, but I don't think I even had a language to tell her you're hurting my feelings when you're not believing
Yeah.
me. I didn't have that
Yeah.
language with her. I didn't have I mean, she was the boss, she was in charge, and I followed her rules, right? But I didn't have language to say, like, I feel sad that you think I'm doing something bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have we didn't have communication like that. It was, I'm the kid, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but I think
So that
that
role modeling from the vulnerability role modeled by the parent to start is just really an important thing that parents can control. You can't control your child, you can only coach them, but you can role model this. Like if she had said something like, hey, like I know there's a lot of stuff going on out there. Like right now, parents could say, like, there's a lot of stuff on the internet, and I just get worried because you have a phone
mm,
and social media, it seems like can be so brutal. And I'm reading about these statistics of like, bullying that can lead to suicide and all this other stuff. And like,
yeah,
I just want you to know, like, this stuff does scare me. What's going on? Is there anything that you want to like talk about with that? Or yeah, just kind of like being the first one to open
yeah.
that door, like you said.
That's right. That's right. And the mask movement, there's a tool. It's that they can find it at millionmask.org, right? It's a
Okay.
digital tool. They can go in and
Uh-huh.
make their own mask. I think I encourage parents to make their own mask first. Before you
Oh,
ask a
okay.
kid to take off their mask, you go first. Because see,
Yes.
what happens is parents think it's easy to do to just say what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But that's an adult thinking trying to like translate to the kid thinking, right? So it's like,
yeah.
oh, okay. The task that we ask people to do is 6 words. It's 6 words. Like everyone
Uh-huh.
can do it. It's a very simple task, but not necessarily easy. So when
Mm-hmm.
parents, and I tell the same thing with teachers, look, don't do this with students unless you've done it first. Because you
Yeah,
need to feel what it's like for somebody to ask you, what is it that you're not talking about? And you
yeah.
to grapple with that moment of like, oh, doubt, wonder, curiosity, fear, all the things that you're saying. Well, yes, it's only 3 words, but that's a big 3 words, like.
Yes.
And I think that if we don't go first as adults to like know that, oh, I'm asking you to push past this normal comfort zone. Like maybe it won't put you in a danger zone, but it may put you in a zone that's a little bit uncomfortable, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we meet each other in that zone as opposed to me as the adult telling you, do this, tell me this, give me
Right.
the answer, and not knowing that to get there required a lot of stressing through what if I disappoint you? What if you don't
Mm-hmm.
love me anymore because of what you hear I'm going through? What if you
Yeah.
begin to make me wrong because I'm
Right.
experiencing life this way? I think that's so important.
There needs to be this safety in expression. Otherwise, no, like a sane person would share such a vulnerability because it's a huge threat if there's
Right.
not a safety element. And so I think what you're saying, yeah, it's important for parents to do it first because to experience that a little bit of threat of like vulnerability, like, oh, what if it's exposed? What if it's not received? What if it's criticized? And then to still do it, feel the
Yeah.
fear and do it anyway,
Yeah.
and can like remain in that safe environment, then you can be the one that creates the safety for your child. Because
Yeah.
the parents are the environment, they're the ones that create the safety in the relationship, or can hold that safety for the child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And they really, I think parents would respect that vulnerability more and be more gentle and sensitive with it, right?
Yeah.
If they do it first.
Yeah. Or just recognize that it's not as easy as it sounds.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I have so many more questions. I'd love to just kind of, as we wrap up, maybe just touch on a little bit of like, I know you were raised by a single mom. What about households that are raised with both parents and maybe the dad likes his mask and he likes the
Yeah.
boys to have a mask? Maybe
Yeah.
the mom is listening to a podcast like this, trying to figure out how to support everybody. What's kind of the
Yeah.
next step if you're like kind of only one waving the flag to take the masks off, but nobody else is on board? How do you start with that?
Yeah. Well, great question. I think it requires in those kind of situations. I've seen lots of them. I've seen them lots of times. I've seen them in lots of layers of it. Um,
Uh-huh.
well, how are they serving, right? Like I think like sometimes you just need examples of how it doesn't serve, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if that's the way it's gonna be, I think the tricky part is you almost have to like either learn from somebody else's example out in the world. There's plenty of
Yeah.
people in many different areas of life, people who have gone on to write their own autobiographies, people who have gone on to be a part of documentaries, and they will tell you nuggets of like what where it started. Oh, when I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid, this is what like you can hear men who are incarcerated talk about what they wish they had better when they were there's plenty of stories out there. So the question
Yeah.
is, okay, so we've decided in this, in this home that okay, we're not going to talk about feelings. We're going to just walk by them, pretend like they don't exist. Okay. And then if somebody is being called to say we got to have some healthier conversations, okay, well, maybe we're going to have to do it in a different kind of way. Maybe we're going to play a game, maybe we're gonna play a game that builds connection. So, like, let's see if a games will help bring to it, right? Let's help. What if it's gonna take
Mm-hmm.
what was it gonna take just some new way of doing the way we do things, right? Which is like, and I think that look, if a man has decided I'm taking it to my grave, then what can you do about that? I mean,
Right.
I've learned my lesson in trying to convince men who've
Yeah.
decided that they don't have emotions. There's not an argument that I'm willing to spend energy on. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, if that's what you've decided
Yeah.
that that's how you want to operate. Now, look, we see it showing up in so many unhealthy ways. Why are 94, I think it's probably the statistics is probably at 94, 93. Let's say the lighter one. Let's say 93. Let's say it was 92, but it's closer to 93, 94. 93% of people who are incarcerated are men.
Mm-hmm.
Are men just nine times as bad as other people? Or are we walking around like landmines and we are exploding at
Yeah.
the wrong time against the wrong people because we don't let some of that stuff out?
Yeah.
It's like a soda. I mean, maybe you guys could
Yeah.
give a bunch of like videos with some like examples. Hey, shake the soda up. Okay, that's anger inside there. Let some random person walk up and open it. What's gonna happen? They're gonna make a mess. They weren't trying to
Yeah.
make a mess. They weren't trying to ruin the carpet. But guess what happened? They opened up the thing that they didn't know because no one said, "Hey, by the way, this fell on the floor. This has been shook up. I had a rough day at work today. Just don't bother me. Leave me alone. Leave me sit here for a little bit by myself without bothering me. But if you shake me up right, if you open me up right now, you're gonna get a mess made." Now,
Yeah.
some messes we can clean up with a baby wipe. We just made a little spill here, and some messes we can be cleaned up for the rest of our lives because
Yeah.
that explosion happened in such a volatile way. And so
Yeah.
we have to begin doing is recognizing that there are plenty of statistics out there, but if people don't like statistics, then maybe they want to use some other ways of like, but I think that for the mothers out there, listen, don't give up. Don't give up. You have to
Yeah.
keep asking the questions. You have to keep saying, look, if we don't raise healthy, what is the quote says? It's easier to raise healthy children than to fix broken men.
Mm.
If
Yeah.
if we don't wait, if we don't teach them now how to navigate those emotions in healthy ways, then we just hope that they don't do it in an unhealthy way, and we have to then go visit them through a glass window or in a box,
Yeah.
and all the other ways that we see young people and young men specifically like uh,
Mm-hmm.
just self-destructing,
Yeah.
quiet desperation, all the ways that we see it, and it's shown up in so many ways that we can't keep saying, "Oh, it's just boys will be boys." If we do, we should just expect to get what we're going to keep getting, and getting it worse.
Yeah.
And so it's always
Mm-hmm.
a conversation for me is like, okay, if it's working, then it's working. If in our family we don't talk about emotions and everybody's healthy, everyone's doing well, hey, why change it? But if we're walking around on eggshells and no one's
Yeah.
happy to be here and we're miserable, then maybe somebody got to step up and say something. And guess what? I've seen plenty of situations where people don't want to do anything about it, and
Yeah.
I don't have the capacity. I'm not. I wasn't put into this work to be a person who's trying to convince somebody who's decided
Right.
that the way that is not working, they're gonna keep it working that way. hey, do you, boo? Do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
the way you want to do you? But just know
Yeah.
that
How's
you're.
that working out for, it's kind of like, how's that working out for you?
How's that
Because
working
the
out for
people
you?
that are like where they want to keep their masks, yes, there's a pain and that they're covering up,
That's
and
right.
maybe in their time they will be ready to take that off when they
That's
feel
right.
safe enough. But like you said, an adult and another adult, it's not my job to change you. And you actually can't even change other adults. You can just create an environment that's creates an environment for change, and then it's
Yeah.
up to them to actually take that and take that courage and step out into the environment. But if they don't want to, then it's their life. Whereas with
Mhm.
children, I think as parents we have relationship with our children. If we can stay connected, then even if it's not a full impact and they're not totally taking off their mask yet, you're still influencing them. And I think to remain, like you said, keep up the faith and the hope that you are making a difference, and it might not show up yet,
Yeah.
but you're planting seeds even though you're not seeing the fruits of your labor. And
That's right.
your child knows the difference between the parent that wears the mask and the one that's taking their mask off regularly, even if they don't show you the results yet.
That's exactly right. It happens
Yeah.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh my gosh. We'll definitely wrap up because I know I don't want to keep everybody too long, but would you share a little bit about where you mentioned about the millionmask.org, and then any other websites or any freebies? Well, that would be a place where parents can download the printable you said and complete like the paper mask
Yeah, they
statement.
can make
Any
a.
other resources you want to share?
It's a digital tool, so they can make a mask
Okay.
there. What we try to do in Ever Forward is, so if you go to our website everforwardclub.org, you will find the link for the Million Mask Movement. It's a digital tool, so they can actually just make
Uh-huh.
it there digitally. Um,
Uh-huh.
and there are plenty of tools. There's a game there that we created called the Adventure, which is like that card game where there's questions in the game and you just play like a game. How do you
Uh-huh.
gamify connection? I
Yeah.
think that those are what we've created, and I think for educators in schools and for parents who are like, my child's school needs more of this. You can either
Uh-huh.
refer them to us or refer us to them, however you want to do it. Have them go to our website, have them check out the taking off the mask workshop. We feel that schools really need to be building this into schools. It needs to not wait
Uh-huh.
till a kid has done something so bad that we have to suspend them. It's like, oh, we
Yeah.
can see some of the early behaviors. So those are all the ways that we want people to connect. And we're on social media. We're always putting out content for educators, for parents, for teachers to build deeper community and connections. And that's kind of like your listeners here. We have a community of parents and educators who care about young men, and that's our work too. It's like, so how do we just make opportunity for people just to say, okay, I don't have to figure that out by myself. I don't have to. If I
Yeah.
choose to, no one's gonna stop me. But I don't have to try and figure it out by myself. And there's a lot of
Yes.
resources and tools out here to support me. So
To support me. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much. I really had a great time chatting with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom and insights.
thank you for inviting me, and thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.